Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. As always, I've missed these. Hey, we haven't had these, what is it now, for a couple of weeks. I've been traveling to Europe. So I'm really happy we're back, and good to see everybody who joins us live, especially, but also everybody who watches afterwards. I'm not gonna talk too much. My name is Stjepan, if you don't know, and just one thing I wanted to share. This is my company called AI in AC, where we help architects and engineers implement and learn AI. And I just want to maybe divert your attention to one thing, and this is that we have an upcoming course price increase. So our fundamentals course, Discovering AI in AC, will be increasing its price in a couple of days. So if you want to make sure you get the best offer, you can do it just here. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. We have a lot planned. I just like these apps to go through them and show how they're used and so on. There's a lot more planned, and I'm filming as we speak this week. So that's exciting. But that's pretty much it, what I wanted to share from my end. I don't want to take too much time. Yeah, Francesco, I already see. Hi, everybody. Hi, Francesco. Please write where you guys are, viewing from. This is always the most fun part for me. As you know, I'm in LA. I don't know if I had these images, paintings last time, these posters. I added them. So, the two companies I have, and I'm in LA, but originally from Croatia, of course. Anyways, long story short, I have Aaron here with me. And yeah, let me just invite him to the screen. Hey, Aaron, what's up, man? Nice to see you online.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we have, we have people from Italy, Milan, so all the kind of late afternoon, and from New York. I guess, what is it, lunchtime there? And where are you calling from?
So I'm coming in from London.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Hey, but let's get straight into it, man. What is Qonic? What problem does it solve? Can you tell us a bit about yourself? Like, how did you get to, I guess, to work at Qonic? I know we just chatted shortly in the background, but yeah, I think people would be interested to know your story too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated in architecture, worked in practice, right place, right time for championing the sort of digitalization and transition from traditional drawing across to kind of object-based modeling, BIM modeling, etc. And up until recently, I spent 10 years in one of the UK's largest architecture practices. I looked after their digital design group. So I had a team of people who was fundamentally responsible for helping that business deliver international projects and training and solving problems when they arise on creating models and developing digital output. I think maybe in the kind of end of that tenure, I'd spent a little bit more time moving from someone with a wholly positive outcome to someone who was maybe finding some of the tools we were using to just be quite frustrating in that they weren't really modernizing and kind of moving forward with what was practical and possible. So yeah, I spent some time writing some documentation, some literature. I worked with a number of other architecture practices and engineering firms to produce the AEC software specification, which sort of set out what we wanted in the future of design tools. I then went back to my desk and maybe didn't quite have the energy to kind of keep doing that traditional role that I'd been doing for the previous decade. So it was time for a good move, and so about a year ago, I joined Qonic. Qonic are a company based in Belgium, in Ghent, with a number of different employees that have worked together previously, all building kind of CAD and BIM tools, and yeah, some real strong kind of backbones and to the product that really resonated with me when I kind of made that jump. So yeah, good move, and yeah, looking forward to introducing Qonic to you, and also maybe sharing some of the examples through live demos of what we've been doing around automation and AI as well.
That's awesome, man. You said a few things there that I want to just comment on quickly. So first of all, you said Belgium, and we already have a person from Belgium joining us. So Anne, hi there. And we also have Remil Kun from Nigeria. Hi, David is an employee of mine from Nigeria, from Kaduna. So I don't know if you're close by there, but yeah. What did I want to say? Yeah, regarding your story, man, I think that many people in this startup space, I at least, can really relate to your story of being I mean, you can say pissed off. You get pissed off at these tools that are like legacy tools that everybody uses, and then I like, you know what would be like even more like aggravating? It would be like, I would use Revit, or I would use, I don't know, Tekla or something like, that's like a bit like, outdated, but a bit, but like on some things. But I would maybe think, it's only me, or like and then the worst thing would be that I would go for a conference where they would be selling me Revit as like this newest thing, and you need to get. I'm like, oh my god, like there are so many tools that are out there that are building stuff. So yeah, I first heard of Qonic, like, what is it, a couple of years ago. I mentioned it in the chat we had before, but I'm pretty sure things have changed since then. So yeah, what can you tell us about the company? What is the problem you're solving, for who and how?
Yeah, perfect. So, I mean, I've got a couple of slides that I can just chuck up on the screen that just
Sure, yeah.
sort of like help me provide that kind of well-rounded overview of Qonic and in terms of what it can do. So, the easiest way to describe it really is that it's a cloud-based platform. It is a 3D modeling platform at its core. And kind of coming back to the analogies you had earlier, when you go to an event or you go to a conference, and you kind of get a mixture of frustration but also inspiration from other areas. I would go to these kind of virtual reality or kind of advanced rendering events, and you see these gaming engines that can just handle this huge scale of data, and you just think, why do I have to wait 15 minutes for a model to open when there's these other tools that people can use in similar but adjacent industries? And it kind of, really feels mad that we can't borrow some of that technology. And the best quote I can provide, it stuck with me, is I was trying to help a young architect understand why we do things the way we had to do them. And he said, well, I'm sat in the office next to 10 people. We've all got supercomputers. We're all sat next to each other. And it takes 15 minutes to open a file to attempt to work in the same environment as each other, and struggle to work in a building that's only like 5-10 stories tall. And yet I can go home and I can sit in front of my telly and I can play with 150 people online in a data set the size of a city. And I can kind of zoom right down into like a windowsill detail. And it's really deflating to try, well, it's impossible to try and then win that person over, that this kind of traditional way of working is a good way of working. So, I would say Qonic's really focused on like challenging that, basically. So yeah, as I said earlier, Qonic's a big group of people. I wouldn't necessarily call it really a startup. There's about 40 people or so that work at Qonic, all of which kind of have previous experience delivering digital tools in the kind of AEC space. And then maybe one other thing that's quite important is that it's completely self-funded. So there are no shareholders, there are no investors, there is nobody influencing roadmap or curtailing feature development. This is really about us working with our partners and our customers and actually building stuff that they need. And so we're able to move really, really quickly. And I'd definitely say that's kind of been the most rewarding thing in my first year and a bit at Qonic, is actually hearing some feedback, and then within a couple of months, it's already in the product, and we fixed it. And that's a very different story coming from like using the traditional tools, where it just doesn't happen. It would never happen. And so maybe if I talk about Qonic as the product, so those kind of frustrations, those kind of challenges are, I would say, what was really a strong appeal to Qonic for me, because Qonic's based on some real core principles, and there are 4 of them, and I'll talk you through them. So the first one is that you should be able to open your information instantaneously. You should not have to wait 15 minutes or 5 minutes or a minute for your information to load. You should be able to open the 3D model for the project you're working on, maybe even multiple 3D models from all of your collaborators. You should be able to do that instantaneously. And if you can open all your models instantaneously, you should also be able to do that from anywhere. So you shouldn't be bound by having that, again, supercomputer under your desk, or that you are in a specific office. You should be able to open that information instantly, but from a Windows PC, a Mac, a mobile device, your favorite web browser, right? We should not have that kind of barrier to working in BIM, where you've got to have this really expensive hardware thing, and you've got to be tied to it, and that's the only way you can collaborate. And so if you can open that information really, really quickly, and you can open it from anywhere, the next most important piece is that everybody should be involved in that process. And so the kind of core principle of Qonic is unlimited user licensing. So you're not charging per person that might contribute something to the project. Because all that happens is, companies, they have to make financial decisions, which is to restrict the amount of licenses, or, for cost's sake, for viability, you can't give access to everybody. And so if you kind of turn that around and you say, well, actually, let's have a modern platform with a really simple user interface and unlimited licensing, both for people inside your company, but also it's completely free for people that you're collaborating with to use Qonic as well. So you start to really take away those barriers, and you're imagining what sounds like a really hyper efficient, really incredible future for delivering BIM projects. And that's kind of the massive appeal for me. And I think the fourth piece here is more about like how you exchange that information, how you move that data around. And so maybe the easiest way for me to kind of give an example of that is something like this. This is a really common traditional way for people to work on a digital project today. You have all of these outcomes that you're trying to deliver: modeling, design coordination, clash detection, 2D deliverables, takeoff, planning, etc. And the probability is you're doing them in multiple different tools, and that's okay. You always want to use the best tool for the job. But the challenge is when you want to move information between those different workflows, you do so by importing and exporting these kind of file formats. And every time you do that, you're probably losing geometry, you're losing data, sanity, time, whatever it might be.
And
Because
money.
every time you kind of move, every time you're moving between them, you're being frustrated by that process. And so probably the easiest way for me to describe what Qonic does is all of those things. It is a solid modeling tool with our own proprietary custom 3D solid modeling engine that runs in a web browser. It is a fantastic viewing tool, but more than that, you can actually edit stuff. You can play and manipulate with geometry and data in a really customizable, fluid way. You can use the tool for quantification. You can use the tool for design coordination and clash detection and so on and so forth. And I think the biggest value actually with this is that you're not wasting time in moving the data, but also in operation of the project. So I've been through so many different workshops where you're sat in a room and you're talking about a clash between a piece of steel and a duct, but actually that's no longer real, because in the live models, it's already been moved around and it's maybe already been solved. And so you kind of end up in this situation where you're like arguing about something that doesn't even exist anymore. And so imagining it in a Qonic world, you're looking at design coordination in the same platform that you're modeling in. So when you see a clash, you just solve the clash instantly there and then without going backwards and forwards 3 steps into different softwares. And so for me, again, this is that kind of really, really, really bright light at the end of the tunnel that I'm super excited for everybody to get to, because it's a much, much more efficient way of delivering projects.
Okay, this is a big, how do you say, announcement, so to speak, of like what Qonic is. I'm excited to see the level it's at today, and what's your plan. You also mentioned your roadmap and so on. We're gonna get to all of those points.
Yeah, I got some really fun stuff to show you around some live demos.
Please go ahead. I'm gonna shut up, so please go ahead.
Yeah, no, keep jumping in by all means. And I guess maybe just to position it, because I appreciate your audience is probably quite varied in where they're coming from. So maybe to talk a little bit about it from 4 different kind of perspectives. So from a designer side, my background is obviously architecture. Qonic for me is kind of incredible in that you have this super fluid, flexible modeling tool. Tools in here that you're recognizing from products like SketchUp or Rhino that allow you to just, when creativity strikes, just grab something and move it and bend it and twist it and change it without the kind of BIM object modeling tools that are kind of quite like locked and structured, and therefore if you just want to bend something or twist something, you kind of can't without kind of going and editing it and then fighting the software to do what you need to do. And so from the designer side, we have a lot of people using it because it's so fluid and it's so flexible, but because it has an underlying IFC hierarchy and structure, you get the best of both worlds. So you get the super flexible modeling, but then you also get the kind of like ability to deliver a proper BIM project. And those 2 things combined, again, I think is super powerful for designers and architects. Actually, more constructors and contractors use Qonic today. So I'd say this is probably the more popular segment. And the reason for that is because effectively Qonic can do everything they need it to do. So it's an amazing way for a constructor or a contractor to aggregate all the models from the design team and the construction team and the supply chain. Put 50, 60, 70 models up in Qonic. You can open them all instantly. You can open them in a web browser, and you can, understand the project. You can measure the project. You can, review the project and really start to get a feel for where it's at in terms of its delivery process. You can quantify from it. You can do clash detection within it. You can really start to de-risk the project. And it's very rare to be able to get all of those formats aggregated in the same place, but still do something with it, like actually edit stuff. Like if it's missing geometry or missing data, you can actually go in and start to change that. And I know it's really small, but because again, it runs on a mobile device, actually someone being on a construction site and getting the answer to the question they need instantly. It sounds really silly, but they're looking at the exact same experience on the mobile device that they would be as if they were sat in an office. It's not a stripped down version or an exported version that runs better on mobile. It's like the same thing. And that is, I think, kind of unique to some extent. I've not really seen that in some of the other tools that offer those kind of mobile apps. For those kind of projects you work on with the deep requirement for providing information through the project, maybe you have a really engaged client that wants to use these models in this whole BIM output process to be able to manage either the building or the estate of buildings that they're inheriting. The information production is really, really important. And I know firsthand that often that gets left to the last minute. People realize that it was serious when the client asked for the ones and zeros in all the right boxes, in all the right places for them to actually use the project at the end. And there's often a lot of excuses in information management, like, oh, it requires another tool that I don't have a license for, I don't know how to use. I guess those excuses kind of fade away when someone can click a link in an email and they're in the product straight away, right? And they're just in the browser and they're editing data. So it is, again, proving to be really quite valuable from an information management point of view. And then obviously when you do hand that project over, maybe traditionally you're kind of handing a client like a bunch of 2018 file formats that they can't open and can't do anything with, and they're too heavy and they can't open on certain machines, and maybe only one person on the client side actually has a license and can actually open it. And that dynamic really changes when you're sending them a link and they have all of their models all in one place with all of their data. And anytime they walk into a meeting room, they can just open up that data and they can engage with it. They can move walls around. They can understand what assets need to be maintained or managed after a few years. And so there's a kind of real focus from the client side of a way of actually finally being able to do something with BIM data, which is again something we're finding with a lot of the customers that are using Qonic right now. And I guess maybe just finally on the kind of the overview of Qonic, it's an opportunity for the designer, the contractor, the owner, the occupier, all of those parties that I just talked about, to actually be in the same place at the same time talking the same language, which is quite rare because usually there's quite fragmented conversations that are quite technology orientated sometimes. And those are the excuses why they can't be all having the same conversation at the same time. And Qonic, I think, definitely starts to kind of pull all of that together and allows for a type of conversation we've not typically had in AAC to date. So yeah, there's a kind of overview of Qonic in terms of what it can do.
Okay, so if it would be one sentence, Qonic would be like a all-in-one collaborative BIM management tool or a BIM modeling tool. What would you say it's better suited?
Well, I think we, you obviously have a lot of conversations with a lot of startups. And so you probably have seen over the last few years that many startups have started at the early stage conceptual design, modeling, volumetric side of the spectrum. I think the best place, or the best way I think about Qonic, is that we went to the opposite end and we said, let's focus on a platform that can handle the most complex amount of data possible. And then let's add the kind of modeling tools a little bit later. And so I think Qonic's aspiration is to be the modeling, to answer your question, it's definitely aspiration is modeling, but right now it's primarily an amazing tool to kind of aggregate and manage all of that information that's come together. Because as you'll probably see in just a moment, you kind of fall off your chair the first time you see that quantity of data kind of spinning around as if it's nothing. It's super impressive.
Yeah, so here's a few things from my end. So first of all, it's very interesting that you were 40 people and so-called a start. That's very interesting for me because typically it's like one or two people that are like leading the firm, and like everybody else can be employed and so on. It's very interesting. But I mean, regardless of that, you have a product that's been, when I've seen it for the first time 3 years ago. So I mentioned this in the pre-talk, right? So I was for the audience here, I was still working at Big, and the guys, Aaron wasn't at the company yet, but they reached out and they wanted to show me Qonic. And what I was amazed with was, of course, the speed. that you also mentioned right now, because they had like this huge hospital project, or like some, I think you had it in your intro video, that project, and it was like zooming in and out, and like everything was so smooth, and I was like, wow, I've never seen nothing like this before. And one more thing that really blew me away was the ability to change IFC files. So you would upload an IFC and you could edit it. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see this. I have a
Yeah.
couple of questions though.
Yeah.
Or
Go for
actually,
it.
one question. So you answered what problem the app solves. You said it's like more today of management than modeling it is, but you didn't actually answer the question for who it is. We have a Matthew here asking, is it like SketchUp meets Fusion 360 superpowered?
Yeah. We actually will be at TrimbleCon in Trimble Dimensions in a couple of weeks, where we're actually a finalist for a competition working with Trimble to kind of better connect Trimble Connect with other parts of the Trimble ecosystem. So maybe Matthew, you can kind of have a look at that, and we can share with you what we're doing. But I mean, ultimately, Qonic is the place in which you can both aggregate all of the information you have and then enhance it and fix it and take it forward. So we have some people that kind of start in Revit, they push it into Qonic, they do really heavy lifting to kind of fix the model and fix the data. And then they kind of go back to Revit again and pretend that they never sidestepped, right? We have people that want to work in Rhino for absolutely as long as possible because it's the most mature, fluid, flexible, creative tool. And then they kind of want to push that geometry out into Qonic to convert it into IFC and classify data with all of the parameters and really hand over an IFC file. So you use the term all-in-one. I mean, just there are so many people using Qonic in different ways today that it is hard to kind of say it's only for that linear activity, because we really do have I'm not going to be able to mention names, but we have an owner-occupier who has one of the largest buildings I've ever seen in terms of the number of geometry and complexities. And Qonic's just the only place they can open it. It's the only place they can engage with it and actually read parameters and write parameters. And so it's a really limited use case, but it works for them. You might be working on an airport. Qonic's the only tool you can have every model turned on at the same time and actually start to move doors around for accessing toilets and stuff like that. So we have these different use cases. We have a lot of architects and designers that use it to enhance and upskill the kind of the basic models. And then we also have the back end stuff where I don't think we ever set out to be a tool for contractors or constructors, but it's become a really powerful tool for them to understand a job, bid on it, get a really deep, quick understanding of the project, and get de-risk it and understand how they would build it. So all of these different workflows. It's a poor answer to your question, but it's just being used by different people for different purposes at the moment.
No, that's fair enough, and I think like Speckle is very similar to that. Like it can be used by many people for many different use cases, so it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing. But I think it's gonna become more clear through the demo. I just have one. This is gonna be a joke. Don't get me wrong, but
Okay.
I think that Qonic is the fastest platform as long as AWS is up and running, right? So it's like
you say that. We didn't have any interruptions. No, in the last week we had some stuff on our development side around like building deployments and stuff like that. But actual users didn't experience any issues in the last week. So and that's primarily because we don't have data hosted in the East Coast of the US. That was probably why. But yeah.
Okay,
I think a lot of tech companies are, of course, reliant on those tier one vendors in terms of like storage and access, right? So
yeah. Okay, that's very interesting, man. Because I remember that Dieter told me, what is it, again, 2-3 years ago now, that you are running on AWS, but I didn't know it's like separated and only one part failed. So okay, very interesting. Cool. Anyway, please go on. I think you got the audience really interested. If people have questions, we have some questions already, but please ask them in the comments. We're gonna cover them. But let's see what Aaron has in store for us here.
Yeah, so I'll start by, just before I jump into the live demo, I'll just talk a little bit about kind of the concept of automation versus augmentation, because I think it's worth me acknowledging that before the demo, just to set out that we will be showing examples of both. And I think when I say automation, I'm really talking about this idea of like traditional computer programming from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, very logic driven, It won't detour from the instruction. It's following a script. Some of your audience may know things like, Grasshopper scripts or Dynamo scripts or whatever. It's very much kind of saying like, I have a thing, I need to do it. It's repetitive. I probably need to do it a couple times on this project, or maybe on every project I ever work on. And automation is really useful for those kind of tasks that are quite manual and repetitive, and you want to save time. So a really good example of that is like batch adding loads of data to models. That's an automation. And of course, that's really, really valuable. It saves the person time. And then I talk about augmentation in some of my examples, as it kind of relates much more to those kind of AI buzzwords that people are used to hearing now, which is like multimodal neural networks, temporal reasoning, those kind of things. And the reason I mention that is I think it's really important that those tasks that you perform with augmentation actually are a parallel to the stuff you're doing with automation, and they require automation. So where your automatic process is to populate the model with data, the augmentation is, hey, you're missing some data you normally would have populated, right? That's that idea that, hey, this data isn't actually logical. It doesn't make sense. And so, we train the tools for augmentation on the automational processes. So you'll see a kind of a blend of both of those things through a lot of what I'm about to demo. And I think it's worth me also saying that the Qonic platform is built on our proprietary multimodal neural network architecture. And basically what I mean by that is it's fully database native. We don't do file formats. We can export file formats and we can import file formats. But when you're working in Qonic and you're native in Qonic, there is no file. You're just in a database. And that really enables our ability to utilize AI tooling and lots of automation and lots of augmentation for users, because that database is specifically designed for BIM data, for the delivery and design and construction projects. So I guess we just have such a huge advantage because we're building a product today rather than maybe 20, 25, 30 years ago, like some of the traditional tools that people know.
I love that.
So, yeah, and some of the tools you'll see in a moment, we've done some really extensive training on. The first one I'm about to show you is actually based on 2,500 models that we've trained it on, which it's just over 11 million objects, I think, something like that. So this is also kind of coming from a place of common sense and deep understanding of how the industry builds buildings. So it's not kind of, we don't have the luxury of building tools for lawyers or accountants that has a humongous, fairly coordinated data set. We actually, those numbers are impressive for AEC, if maybe not in other kind of parts of AEC. And we use things like spherical scanning of geometric features, so kind of effectively creating an image of an unwrapped geometry, using different toolings that help us create a 3D geometric signature for objects. And those are really useful when geometry is partial or maybe simplified or even inconsistent. So I think when you take that and you combine it with things like hierarchical and spatial context and self-growing neural graphs, et cetera, and by the way, I think for everyone's benefit, that's maybe as technical as I'll get today. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll just jump into a kind of a live demo of the things I'm going to show. So just to place these 6 things, maybe just before I jump in and show them, these automations and augmentations, they're really here to support users. These are examples that are in Qonic today or will be by the end of this month or absolutely before the end of the year. So these are not things that are like 6 months away or 12 months away. These are either live in the, and you'll see through the demos, these are pretty much done, that they're ready to go. The first one is automatic classification. So this is about taking unspecified geometry and using machine learning, automatically classifying that geometry as a classified object. Really useful for delivering, digital projects where maybe you've modeled something in a really kind of, I'm not going to say dumb tool, but like a simplistic tool that maybe doesn't have that kind of categorization or classification systems. This was actually something we just won a Building Smart International Award for the application of technology just literally a month ago in Berlin. So this is something that we're really, really excited to kind of share with your audience. It's amazing the kind of applications that this has. I'm also going to show some stuff around kind of batch data automations, some really, really impressive stuff if you're a designer or an architect on contextual and associative interactions with geometry. We've got some fun stuff about building equity and accessibility to BIM. It's less sexy, but it's so important. And then finally, we'll, if we still have some time, I'm going to share some stuff on 4D planning and simulation from the construction side, which again is, huge about how much time that kind of saves on a project.
Well, this all sounds great. We have an hour. Please go ahead, man.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's jump in. I've just switched over to Qonic, which is running on my Mac, and I've just opened a project here in London. And as you can see, the best thing for me to do right now is probably zoom out, and you can kind of get a sense of what Qonic's all about. We have no issues in dealing with huge scale geometry.
Oh my god, you nailed it, man! I love this. Wait. So I have a couple of questions. Let's stay on this. This is amazing. So, first of all, how did you get this huge data set, and what is it? Is it like massing from, I don't know, Google Maps, somehow extracted? How did you get this?
Yeah, so this was actually some data that I had access to from a previous project I worked on in architecture. So I actually existingly had this geometry. This is the kind of geometry that when you're building a big building in central London, it's so important to have this contextual data so that you can kind of see, especially in London, we have like verified views around the city so that you can still see St. Paul's whilst you're building a building, So I actually had access to this data, but we've just announced some partnerships with companies like CityWeft, where you can actually bring in 3D data to instigate a project from. You'll see some examples of that on our LinkedIn as well. But ultimately, as a user can bring in any source of data they like. So in this instance, it's just a giant bunch of solid models, which represent, buildings here in London. And I've obviously got a bit more detail here on this open source project for the Bank of England, which was made a couple of years ago, kind of showing basically what the Bank of England looked like a few years ago.
Okay, and let me understand. So because you mentioned you're running it on your Mac, does this then require a Mac, or can you run it on Windows? Is it a desktop app? Is it a web app? What is Qonic?
Yeah, so the default is it runs in your web browser, and basically after this bit of the demo, I'm only going to show from the web browser. So it's kind of agnostic then at that point which device you're using. We have an installer for Windows computers and for Mac computers, and basically what that does is it just unleashes any performance restrictions that your browser puts on. So a lot of browsers, they have like a maximum amount of RAM they can use of your machine's compute power. So by installing the Windows installer or the Mac installer, you move past those restrictions, and it can use the total performance of your local machine. It's not a requirement; you don't have to do that. But of course, when you're dealing with maybe a larger model, it's always preferable probably to use everything your computer can chuck at it. So,
wow! Please keep zooming around, man. I'm in love. This is awesome.
Good stuff. Well, I remember the first time I saw this, and it's the type of thing that when I got back to my desk in the office and I was just sat there waiting, looking at a loading screen, and I was just thinking like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to look at this loading screen? Why is this a thing that we've just accepted in our industry?
Yes.
And hopefully, similar for yourself or for any of your viewers, like this just, you're kind of like, what, how am I doing this? And you can kind of see that the level of detail here is basically kind of streaming in as I zoom and move around the model. This is what I'm talking about when I say like, gaming engine style technology. Again, I've spent the last 10 years telling people not to model bolts and threads and screws and whatever. But as you can see in Qonic, we don't really care. You can do that if you want. That's fine.
I wasted so much time myself in my work previously as an engineer, as an architect, as a BIM manager, whatever, on just like waiting. So what we would do, both at Sweco and Big, we would like open the model before we even went to work, like commuted to work. We would start opening the model, close the laptop, and then commute to work. Or if you didn't do it, you open it at work. But then for the first hour, I would just like get back on email, drink coffee. And the thing is that every time you wait for something, it's an excuse to open Facebook, open LinkedIn, open something that takes you away from what you're supposed to do. So, man, wow.
Yeah. There's absolutely no reason why this industry accepts that performance.
Yeah.
There are tools out there, hello Qonic, that completely ignores those traditional barriers that you're talking about here, right? Again, this runs in a web browser, so you can be on a laptop in a meeting room. You're these barriers, these things that are a problem to our industry that stifle our efficiency, they're gone with Qonic. That's the kind of the main thing that I definitely want to make sure people are comfortable with. And maybe just to kind of keep running through the demo here. So I've got this pavilion in this courtyard of this project. This actually came in from Rhino. So you can see, obviously, we've got complex geometry, we've got difficult things going on here, etc. Qonic can engage with this. It converts it into solid geometry. This is not like a mesh you can't do anything with. This is all usable geometry. So it's definitely not uncommon to kind of maybe use this workflow to try and then come into Qonic and then turn it into like a BIM project and move it forward. So maybe for my first bit of the demo, to some extent, I've got a door here, and I'm just going to move it. And the reason I'm doing that is because this door has come through IFC. And the problem, to some extent, with IFC is that you obviously lose all of the intelligence that maybe you had built up, all the constraints and associations you built up in your original tool. And so this door that's come across, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but it's actually a building element proxy. This is like an unclassified geometry. It's called a door, but it doesn't actually perform or behave like a door. And one of the challenges with that, of course, is it might look right when you're in a world of ArchiCAD or Revit, but of course, when you need to give it to someone and they need to use it for something, this is where that kind of intelligence sort of really breaks down. Now, the example of kind of utilizing AI and specifically machine learning in this instance, and this is the example I was giving you earlier, is we want to actually be able to classify things in this project appropriately. And so if I select this door again, and I click into change and modify its data, I have a long list here of all the things I could choose it to be. And again, this is amazing because I could actually say that it's a floor if I wanted to. I mean, I don't know why, but there are architects out there that will claim walls are floors and fun stuff like that. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to turn on our tool here to automatically classify the object, and almost instantaneously, it's a door. And so this sounds like such a basic example, but what happens now is it will perform like a door, which means when I adjust it, when I stretch it, when I change it, when I modify it, when I schedule it, when I detail it, when I export it out as Excel, it is now a door. This is a door item. This is now a full BIM kind of, this is where we're heading, fully classified, data-rich geometry, even though this came into Qonic from Rhino like 2 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And the use case here, of course, this doesn't have to be something easy like a door. It could be a pipe or a duct or a mechanical piece of equipment in a plant room that to you or me maybe just looks like a box and we don't really know what it is. But using those things I mentioned earlier, like the 3D scanning of spherical compository, plus the hierarchical structure, plus the neural graphs, all of that kind of coming in together is what's creating this list basically of intelligent information, of fully classified information. And so again, you can use the tool you want to use, and then you can bring it into Qonic and really take it much further as well. Of course, this object, I can start to go in and I can add more data to it. So I've just realized it has no fire rating. So I can just go in here and I can type in that it's like FD60 from a fire rating point of view. Maybe if I browse my model, I've got some, multiple models open here. And I've maybe let's just do a little report of my project. So this is the same setup. I've got it done by building, by model, and now by class. And I can measure things in areas and volumes and concrete quantities, counts, etc. But I've got another configuration of this report in the background here, which is about fire ratings. And so I can see maybe across my entire project that I have a series of obviously doors through my project that haven't actually been classified just yet. So these are unclassified doors. They have no fire ratings. Maybe this is something that I'm quite concerned about. And so, Qonic's a really great way to visualize models. Maybe this is the first time I've ever opened this project. I don't really know this project very well, but it's a really quick way to understand what is working, what is correct, and what is not right in my project. And so with those doors, maybe I select them, and you can see all the parameters on the right-hand side, the data points about all these doors. They have different names, they have different typologies, they have different heights and widths and so on. And the point I'm probably trying to make here is how easy it is to improve and enhance the data of these objects. And so for me, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to add some IFC parameters, and I'm just going to add the fire rating to these doors, and not just add that parameter to those objects, but also provide a data point, a value for that as well. So all of these doors 179 of which now have that 60-minute fire rating in my project. And again, this seems like a really small example. Think of it from the other side. I was opening in the project recently. It was like 20 Revit models. I brought them into Qonic. I was able to change 10,000 objects and add like multiple parameters and their values within seconds. And so in terms of like a really efficient, quick way to enhance the data in projects, Qonic's extremely powerful in being able to improve the quality and improve the trust, therefore, in the models that you're producing as part of a BIM process.
I love this. So instead of like using something like within, I mean, I'm basing it off of Revit, but you have a bunch of people that are working in Rhino or SketchUp. That's maybe not easy to add this kind of data. So Qonic solves that problem. I want you to like just answer one quick question for me. Taking a step back, how do you get this data or this model into Qonic? Is it like a plugin? Is it an upload? Is it how do you get it in?
Yeah, so from our Qonic dashboard, which is this web interface, I can create a new project, and it's a case of just pulling in the models that I would like. So these could be IFC files, these could be Rhino files, they could be SketchUp files, they could be IFC files. In the Revit journey, there's a couple of different approaches. So one way is put a Qonic plugin on your Revit instance, and then with the Revit model open, you can publish to Qonic. An alternative way is you just drag a Revit file into this web page, and it will process and then be available for you in Qonic. The only benefit of doing it through the plugin is that if you then make changes in Qonic, like say, for example, you had 10,000 parameters, you can actually then push those changes back to the original Revit file. And the original Revit file will still have all your view templates and like your your overrides and your title blocks and all the kind of original stuff that you maybe wanted in your project. But you haven't had to open 10 Revit models to manually add all the parameters to each one of those files. So that's the big difference.
Wow, that's impressive, man. Yeah, go ahead, please. Don't let me
Yeah,
stop you.
so it's amazing to be able to add all of that information and to be able to kind of really quickly start to engage with the project that you're working on. I think maybe just I'll change the example for just a second. We'll talk a little bit about modeling. So as is often the case with heritage buildings or just real buildings, right? Just a real world example of a building. Not everything is the same. This isn't student accommodation or a hotel where every window is identical. This is real life. This is the types of projects that we deal with. And you can see here all the windows, the different shapes and sizes, and they have different attributes to them. And whether it's a new build or an existing build, sometimes when creativity hits, you just want to be able to engage with this content, and you want to be able to do stuff with this information. And so I just want to show you an example here. Again, these windows are all different shapes and sizes, but if I grab this window, I can just stretch it straight away. And you'll notice a couple of things are happening automatically in this instance. It understands that the window here is, there is some parametricism to the window in terms of the mullion, in terms of the height. What you're seeing really is the glass has increased. It's not that the actual window frame has been stretched or the key geometric and dimensional properties have changed. It's actually just the amount of glass. And that fluidity is what you would expect from a tool like Qonic. These are objects. I can click on that window and I'll have lots of parameters about the object, but I want that fluidity of being able to kind of push and pull it. As my design, my creativity strikes, I want to be able to kind of have that level of instantaneous fluid design iteration. That's not necessarily uncommon. That happens quite a lot. And again, in this instance, you can see a lot of these windows, they have lots of different detail elements to them. Maybe if I just spin inside this window, you can see, for example, I've actually just gone in and modeled some additional geometry. So I've put a sill in here, I've put in a secondary glazing system, I've put in a safety bar to stop people from kind of leaning against the existing windows that are on the outside. These are quite common as part of a refurbishment. We're adding all this extra detail in. And these will all be manufactured by different trades and different contractors. So all of these parts, I actually do want them to not be within one window family or component. I actually quite like the idea of these being separate because they'll be installed, manufactured, demolished, all separately from each other. Now, if I say, for example, wanted to replicate that level of detail to the other windows, your initial reaction would probably be like, well, that's kind of, that's manual. You'd have to manually apply that and model that to each window because they're all different sizes. They're all different shapes. They're all maybe different actual physical types of window. And so you can probably know where I'm going with this one. That's not necessarily the case with Qonic. So if I click on that window to select it using a copy detailing tool, you'll see that it immediately understands the additional detailing associated to that window, even though that's not part of the window component. So it understands that there is some detailing there that's available to the window, even though, again, it's not part of the window. And you can probably predict what I'm about to do, but I'm just going to grab these additional windows here, and I'm effectively going to paste that, the extra detailing that you saw to those additional windows. And again, these windows are different sizes, they are different shapes, they might have different manufacturers, they might be just completely different components, but the logic of what I'm trying to do, that's what Qonic understands. Qonic's really good at applying that kind of logical, common sense approach, the application of intelligence, the understanding of construction to make for these really flexible uses where it's really, really, really easy to be able to kind of add this level of detail into the models that you're working on. So for us, it's about kind of making the modeling process fun, enjoyable, fast, rather than like it feeling like you're fighting with the software.
Wow, I think that many in the audience are sharing my view on this, that I have rarely had. I think I've never had this big of an ROE, like return on expectations. so because if somebody tells, yeah, it's another BIM like management platform, like, okay, ACC can do this stuff, but ACC can do this for sure.
Yeah.
This is amazing, man. Thank you so much for sharing this. I do have a question about it. Actually, just recently, or actually last week, I went to Hungary, right? And they also have a lot of these like heritage buildings and all of these details. So how would you go about it? Like, can you model stuff within Qonic, or is it better to model and then copy it around afterwards? Is it better to model in something else, like, I don't know, Rabbit or whatever, and then move it back, or Rhino?
Well, I guess the kind of key thing from a Qonic side is that we have no limitations on the level of detail or the level of density that you go to. So, with heritage columns and, the real intense detail that you find on existing building listed facades of historic buildings, there's no issue to Qonic in that level of getting to that level of detail. And sometimes you'll find that that's not always the case with the other tools that you might have referenced. And so, naturally there will be, it will be easier to manage that quantity of data in the Qonic platform. We have modeling tools that allow you to create geometries right now. I think in the next month or two, we'll be bringing through a component library system, which allows you to kind of just populate models with pre-existing organizational libraries of content, or maybe manufacturers of content. But we've definitely still got some more tools to build. And I would say in the interim, if you are faster at modeling this kind of stuff in SketchUp or Rhino or whatever it may be, then keep doing that. You can work in that product, you can work in that tool, and then you can bring it into Qonic. Click on that column, use the machine learning to automatically classify it as a column, so that then it's in your column schedules and all of those kind of things. You can bring materiality to the object, fire ratings, performance, specification. So yeah, obviously it's going to depend on that user's experience. If they have a tool they really love, keep using it, and just complement that tool with Qonic, where you can then take it forward, do the clash detection, do the issue management, do the handover, and all of the lovely stuff as well in terms of BIM.
Amazing. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I was jumping into a model here, and this is again just running in browser, by the way, in case anybody's uncertain. But there's just one more example of this kind of modeling stuff that I just really want to show, because for me this is just such a common, typical thing that I'm used to experiencing on projects. And it's just another example of kind of being able to stretch an object and see the results of that happen, and the benefit of that happening. So let's say this is quite a developed project. We're kind of through delivering this out now. We're on site, etc. We're working with contractors. During the development of a project and during the delivery of a project, things change. It's not like design just randomly stops one day and then we build it. Actually, design kind of continues through the build process. And something like a balcony design, for example, maybe the contractor has a comment about how they can build it cheaper or faster, or maybe there's a way they can pre-manufacture it off-site somewhere. And so this balcony that you see here, this is actually all modeled as individual components. So we have like edges, and we have railings, and we have glass, and the soffit under here is its own individual component. Maybe there's a scenario where this can be pre-built and it's a set size, and maybe it just gets bolted onto the building, right? That's not how we initially designed it, but that's what's the evolution at this point of the design and how it's coming. Now, like I said, they're all separate components. They're all individual pieces. But the thing I want to show here, because I just really love this example, is if I was to grab the edge of this balcony and I was going to resize this balcony, sorry, there's a really important tick box. I'm going to automatically expand my selection. So as I expand this balcony, you can see by the color override here, something else is happening. This is actually understanding that the edge of this balcony is related to the soffit, it's related to the glazing, it's related to the railing. These things are a system. This is, again, another example of Qonic's kind of understanding of construction and understanding of applied intelligence. We know how buildings come together. So when you're stretching the edge of that balcony, you're seeing that other things are adapting at the same time. And so there's a really good example of like that moment of creativity strikes. I need to do something. Do I have to select 10 individual components and resize them? Or maybe I can just grab the balcony and the whole thing works as one item. And in some tools, some parametric tools, these things can do the same, but you have to manually kind of align and lock and constrain the model. And the problem with over constraining models is that's when you get that performance barrier. And what you're seeing here, Qonic doing on the fly, is by automatically expanding that selection, Qonic's building those associations in the moment you're doing it. And so it's not looking every time you touch an object to see how many other objects might be affected by it. It's doing it when you actually make the change. And so again, that's a kind of a huge performance boost over maybe some of those traditional modeling tools where you click something and you're just watching a spinning wheel whilst it works out if it can do anything else. Okay, so maybe just before I come off of this kind of like modeling example, I just want to highlight, you can probably see the direction or the future direction of Qonic with some of this. For us, it's about providing fluidity to stretch a window or to resize a balcony. But we also want to make sure that what you're doing here is buildable. And we know that by grabbing a random window and resizing it, and now you have 100 instances of randomly sized windows, that's probably not very buildable. And so again, maybe just a comment about like future direction with some of this. Built behind all of this, we're also working on the tools to help you optimize design, like design dimensions, for example, to consolidate unique instances. There are going to be certain people in certain parts of the world that have regional or geographical specific rule checking that might be relevant. So for example, I just come back from Singapore earlier this year. To get building permits in Singapore, you have to submit an IFC SG file, which has a minimum set of parameters required by Singapore in order to give you building permits, similar in Dubai and other parts of the world as well. You might have a client who's provided you an information delivery specification, an IDS. So you want to maybe audit your model against that IDS, or you check your model against performance specifications, you validate, you verify, maybe you want to recycle your experience from past projects. These are kind of some of the examples where we're very conscious of building this tool set underneath Qonic. So as you're doing these kind of things with the modeling, how do I then go in and actually quality control, quality check the kind of the geometry and the design that I'm developing? And so you get a real sense here of kind of our approach to supporting designers and helping you create models that can be easily adapted and maintained and really deliver design and construction projects. Okay. So maybe for my second from last example, I just want to talk about, let's just use this project again as the example here. I want to talk about and maybe position some of BIM's biggest challenges, and I'm gonna use one specifically, which is about inclusion. There are some serious barriers to people being able to engage with BIM projects. One of those is skills. So I think it's fair for me to say that BIM is often quite limited to those who have software experience. Companies have to make commitments to people to put them on a 3-day training course and a book. And please never again is that going to be something we have to do, which is like send staff for a 3-day training course, right? Modern user interfaces should be much, much, much easier to understand. It's not about ribbon interfaces with tiny little icons that no one knows how to use. Some of the other barriers I mentioned earlier around licensing, it is financially unviable to provide for businesses to provide licenses to everyone, where there are these license models where you have to kind of like pay to access or pay per user. That just means licenses are only provided to the few, and operational costs for those businesses to actually assign, reassign, and provide temporary access to licenses. Like it's almost a full-time job for large companies now to kind of move licenses around in order to give people access to the tools. And again, that example I mentioned earlier about hardware, again, it's financially unviable to provide everyone in your business with a supercomputer just to open a model to answer a question. These hardware requirements are too high. People can't access the information when they need them. And that's most commonly on a construction site or in a meeting room. And so, well, maybe one final barrier, it's not quite the same as the others I've just mentioned, but let's say you have a supercomputer, you have a license, and you have the skills to drive the software. I don't know this project very well, and I can't find the answer very easily. And so for us at Qonic, we really believe that everyone should be able to contribute to a project. And if you think about removing those barriers, and I've kind of shown some examples of that, you're very much creating more equitable access for everyone. You're enabling questions to be answered without the kind of excuses of, oh, I've got to go back to my desk, or let me check and I'll come back to you in 2 weeks. The important thing is we're moving the project forward. So let's just imagine this scenario for a second. Anyone in your audience, we're opening the Qonic sample model for the first time. And it's got a simple user interface and it's got unlimited licensing. And I have no experience with using traditional kind of CAD or BIM software. I've been sent an email. There's a link in the email. I've clicked it. I'm in my web browser, and I have a question about the project. But I don't want to change my question for the software. I just want to ask what my question is. So I'm just going to use the search bar at the top here in Qonic, and I'm basically just going to ask a question. So I'm going to say, and again, like I don't want to change my question. I just want to ask it however my brain thinks to ask it. So I'm going to say, how many doors have a 1 hour fire rating? Now, I don't know what any of the buttons do in Qonic. I don't know how this works. That is my question. There are 307 doors in my project with a 1 hour fire rating. And again, I haven't changed the question because fire ratings are typically typed in by F60 or FD60 or whatever. So we're interpolating the question. We're understanding that, okay, you said 60, F60 probably means 60 minutes. 60 minutes is an hour. We understand how many doors have got a fire rating of 60 minutes. That's an hour. There you go, 300 doors. So I have an answer to that question if I'm in that meeting room, and I can just quickly ask it and I can quickly get the answer.
I love this. And this is the AI part of it, right? So
yeah, so this is where we're effectively using a natural language, a large language model to process natural language interactions with software. And again, our understanding of how buildings come together and how they work means that we can kind of connect those dots between industry relevant terminology and the data points that you might find in digital models.
So you're saying that now we can search for these doors in this case, and we can edit that data. Can we then get all of that in a table so we know how much quantity there is? Or is it all just visible here?
As if we've rehearsed this, Stjepan, I'm going to ask another question. So I'm going to say, what is the total area of plasterboard in building 1? Okay. Because that's a normal question that someone might ask. They might kind of say, well, how much plasterboard do I have in my project? Well, I have 5,908 square meters of plasterboard in this project.
Amazing.
And I can explore that. I can understand, oh, cool, around the openings, the plasterboard is also gone right into the recesses of the doors. Like, this is proper accurate modeling, because we don't care about how detailed you get or how much detail is in the models. We're not asking you to simplify them or dumb them down, which means you can go to that almost like construction level of detail for finishes, which means your quantities are significantly more accurate.
This is amazing, man. I think that the audience, like, we're going to cover a bunch of comments now, but I think that everybody's in the audience is like so impressed with this. So yeah, please, do you have anything else you wanted to mention specifically today, or?
Yeah, I'm going to show one more thing, if that's okay with you.
Go ahead.
I mean, the value there is, of course, that I have the answer to my question. The project moves forward. Whether I'm in a meeting room or a site office, it kind of doesn't really matter. Maybe my last example here is more around construction and de-risking construction. So, contractors, again, they use Qonic for two main reasons. One is responding to bids. It's a great platform to understand, assess, validate, quantify, report, all those quantities you've just seen, being able to get them out as tables and, XLS files and so on, CSV files. I can visualize what I need to visualize, I can export it, and I can deliver it. I'm getting to grips with the project, and I can de-risk my bidding process as a contractor. And the most other common use case for a contractor is actually handover. So, my deadline is November 1st. I have to hand over this data and this geometry to my client. maybe my supply chain hasn't quite got where I need them to be. And so I use Qonic to aggregate all their models, query them, clean them, repair them, complete them, and then hand it over and deliver them. And maybe one of the examples I want to go into here is more about like the bidding process and like de-risking and preparing how to construct this building. So it's not very complicated, but it's a really good example. This building is actually set out in sets of work. So we have a basement, we have a block A. Inside of block A, we have levels and we have walls and we have slabs and so on and so forth. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use Qonic's planning tools. So inside of these planning tools, I'm able to create a new planning system. So this is for 4D construction simulation. So I'll just call this option 1, A and B. It's based on the configuration I've just set up, which is like how I want my project to go. I'm going to start this project on November 1st. I'm going to just reorder these slightly. So I'm going to have the slab and then the column and then the wall and then the beam. And I'll kind of come back to that sorting in just a second. I'm also just going to speed up the simulation here because it'll be a little bit easier for me to demonstrate. But yeah, that's how long it takes to run a 4D construction simulation planning using Qonic. Now, there are tools out there that take...
Sorry, I was a bit too late to add my camera, but I was like, wow, man, my jaw dropped. This is amazing. This is so cool.
Yeah. We should have put a disclaimer at the beginning of this that you put something soft next to your chair. So every time you fall off it, you know, you've got somewhere good to land. But this is very much a kind of, you know, there are mature tools out here that enable contractors to do this kind of 4D construction simulation process, but this is a much, much, much faster automated process where your packages of information, they understand what needs to be built first before they're built. You know, this is a significantly quicker way to be able to deliver, you know, a bid. You know, you've only got a set time where you've got to understand how the project's going to come together, and how that works. And again, maybe like I'll just show you some examples here. So maybe there's another option that I want to do, which is specifically maybe change the build order. So if I just set just this piece as my own, I'll turn it to the side. I will grab just this geometry here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to modify this geometry. And again, this is a pretty normal thing for contractors to do. Those floor slabs would never be built like that. They would be built based on pore sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut and slice those floor slabs based on this wall face that you see here. And basically what that's now done is it's physically edited the geometry. And I used to get this all the time where contractors wanted us to model concrete slabs based on pore sizes. But as an architect, there is no scenario where we're going to do that. We will just model it as one big slab. It's the contractor's problem to go and deal with. And so what this means now is that this geometry has been adapted based on maybe that pore slab size that people wanted. And I can go in here and I can now maybe set that this is a part of block C instead of block B. And basically the reason I'm doing this is so that I can now reset my scope and I can go back into planning and I can maybe create a new option here from the preset. I'll just call this option 2 A, B, and C. Similar kind of processes before. It's literally 4 or 5 clicks. I need to make sure I get my order correct again with slabs, columns, walls, and beams. And now I have a secondary option, which is going to build building A, and then building B, and then building C. And again, this is fully customizable. So I can cut the slabs, I can move columns from one model to another. I can, oh, I've just noticed something strange just happened there. But, you know, I have the flexibility of repairing this and then changing this and adapting this in order to kind of make this viable. And yes, again, this is a really, really, really specialized task that traditionally takes, you know, very complex software to do. But is something that's super, super, super easy in Qonic and really speeds up the kind of contractor's ability to turn things around and be able to kind of answer that. And again, maybe just to highlight again the direction of Qonic in terms of this, the way that we'll build this out in the future is very much looking at the application of AI principles, specifically temporal reasoning, in order to understand that this cannot be built before this has been built, right? That this idea that, you can't put a column floating in space, it's got to sit on another column or on a slab or whatever it may be. So some really fun stuff coming specifically on this, maybe when we talk next year or whatever it may be, where we're extending this with warnings and notifications, using AI to alert you to errors and issues and things to consider. And this is a really good example of augmenting the user using AI, basically. So yeah, maybe again, just to kind of summarize, super easy, super fast tools, easy to generate geometry, easy to apply intelligence, and really create a lot of efficiency in the process of being able to deliver digital projects with all of the different examples. For us, we're really focused on removing repetitive tasks, building intelligent solutions and intelligent tools, spotting and applying fixes so that people can create just better BIM. Basically, that's the kind of mission statement, really, and hopefully some of the things I've been able to get across today.
Man, you've done amazing at showing this, and I think the tool is backing all of that up. Like this is very impressive. I think that there's like, for my first comment, I would just say that I think that you covered like many tools in one, basically. So you can start your modeling where you're starting it, and I think that that's also like an easier way to onboard clients. So it's not like, we need a pilot project where you haven't modeled anything. Like you can just say, we model stuff. We need to like fix stuff with data. We need to take quantities. We need to make it like 4D and plan it all out. And all of this is possible because you're taking, to my mind is coming Sparkle that does quantity takeoffs and all of this, categorization. You can take that. Something like Speckle too, because you can like push data across and anchor and so on. So you kind of have like all of these tools in one, which is so impressive. Listen, I want to take audience questions right now, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, we have Matthew saying clap, clap, clap. Yeah. Matthew, listen, I see you had a lot of fun in the comment section with questions. We're going to get to them just in a second. Fabian, a fellow Belgian, is also saying wow. Matt here is also saying wow. And Matt is also saying one more thing, that he loves the underlying global logic that connects all the different building components. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, let me see. Let me get started. This is the question that I want to ask first. So it says here, David, a fellow Californian, is asking Aaron, part of the challenge AC tech startup space is in packaging and pricing. Price is too high, you won't get adoption. If it's too low, friction in your operations and revenue model. Unlimited license that you mentioned earlier is a pretty powerful bet. Curious to know how this model ties into your theory on how AC firms will operate now versus in the future.
Yeah, I mean, naturally there's the theoretical side of that, which we've been talking about, which is if you stop people from being able to engage because you don't give them licenses, because you're trying to save money as an organization, and whether I think maybe Adobe kind of started it, but this per user licensing is kind of what's caused that. We have the ideological belief that you shouldn't be doing that, but you've still got to make money as a business, right? So it's just worth thinking, what is it that costs you money? Is it the fact that you're allowing your boss to be able to click a link to be able to be involved? Is that costing Qonic money? Or is it actually just like, oh, we've put another 10 projects in Qonic and the storage space associated to those kind of 10 projects? And so, the way that we price and the way that we cost Qonic is effectively coming from this concept that we're charging for what costs us, rather than stopping people from being able to be involved in the BIM process, which just feels like a very, very, very strange way to enable our industry to be much more digital. And so, yeah, all the costings up on Qonic.com for anyone that wants to go and have a look at it. We charge on a project basis. You can actually all use Qonic for free right now. The first project you put up is completely free. You can put 5 models up and pretty much use many of the features I've just shown you today. And then it's a case of kind of moving into the tiers where, depending on the size of the project or the number of projects you have, that's where the kind of costs kind of change from there. And of course, I'd probably highlight a couple of things. For many companies, you're not going to fully transition to the most expensive tier straight away. You're going to put your first project in, and if it's good and it works and you're enjoying it, you probably put your second project in. And so you scale up eventually. And the other thing to mention is it is per month. So if you use it for 6 months and then you don't need it, you're not committed to a 3-year agreement where you're kind of hostage to using a product that maybe just isn't at that point in time valuable for you.
Yeah, this is very important to say for pricing, because I also, like, I have this other company, NeoStack, right? You saw the and we were also like discussing the pricing, and I can tell you that the reason why there's like this user-based pricing, or like per seat or per license, is because that makes the most money. That makes the
Yep.
most money for the company, because like you're like, okay, it's a 5,000 people company that wants my software. Here are 5,000 licenses. Amazing. But of course, like, especially as a new entry in the market, this is not like, I would say, not even ethical, but I would say like it's not realistic, and it's hard to get that, like, buy-in. So what we're also doing is changing it to like, what is it actually costing us money? So for us, this is applications. So we're changing per application used, or like for you per
Yep.
project posted. So I think that's a smart way. I mean, you might transition at this point. It's like that. So I think that this is a great.
Yeah, I can't predict the future, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
if you look at what costs ChatGPT, you pay for the tokens for the processing for the question you
Yeah.
ask, right? You could pay £20 a month if you want, and then never use it, or you could pay every time you use it. And so for us, we're kind of just focused on like, let's just enable people, and then maybe that leads to more projects, and that's where the money's at. And again, I can't predict the future, so I don't know what will happen, but that's where it is right now.
No, I think it's really fair. I think that everybody who looks at the site, it's completely fair. It doesn't look anything like that. You fall off your chair when you see the price. It's like,
yeah, I
it's
mean,
not fair.
I used to manage 50 software vendors in my old company, and I used to manage the budget for each of those line items for cost. And I would say it's a significant advantage for Qonic is the current price point, because if you imagine every single person in your company having access to Qonic for that price, it's significantly less than we were paying for like annual renewals for the main core tools we were using. So.
Yeps, I know. Yeah, I understand you fully. I also have a lot more thoughts on this because of NeoStack, but I want to take away from from your demo. Matthew here has a question. Can Qonic produce construction detail level drawings, rendering, output as a .rvt file?
Yeah, so I'd probably say, whilst many of you might have enjoyed what I've just demoed, it's probably the worst way to introduce you to Qonic, because I have just jumped around into like really specific kind of automated features or augmented features. For anyone that wants to kind of have that full overview of Qonic, you can join us for an upcoming webinar. You can go to qonic.com/get started. There's like an hour-long video that shows you like all the different pieces, one of which is around drawings. We recognize that there's two things in play. One is that if you create a process where the models can be much greater relied upon, right? There's more trust in the quality of the models, because you can get to a better level of detail, better level of resolution. The data in the models are more useful. Your door manufacturer in Germany can click a link and engage with the model rather than expecting a whole set of 50 drawings on the doors of your project. So if you can create more trust in the model, you probably are going to create less drawings. That's not going to happen right now. There's probably an axis where one goes down and one goes up. So you can create drawings within Qonic. So we have some features launching, I believe, towards the end of this year. We've been talking about it since June, but we're just like perfecting the experience, the user experience. Basically, you can create plans, elevations, and sections. You press a button, and fully automated, vectorized, dimensioned, tagged drawings will be returned to you. And the best way for me to describe that is probably a general arrangement level of detail, or concept design level of detail. So you are talking about solid fill walls with running dimensions across all the rooms and along the facades, room tags, door tags, window tags. All of that's customizable and flexible. But that's our kind of like first line in the sand. That's our first sort of like version 1 of drawings in Qonic, is being able to get kind of like general arrangement level of detail drawings from Qonic. Now you can do whatever you want with those drawings afterwards. So if you want to take them off into your favorite CAD product and enhance them even further, you could do. But maybe to give some people some confidence, many of the Qonic team previously worked together at Brixis. And so BricsCAD, it was more popular in certain parts of the world and maybe North America, but BricsCAD is a 2D drawing tool, which was extremely developed and extremely mature. And so the people that have moved across now to Qonic have some experience in designing, 2D drawing tools. So that should hopefully give you some confidence about also where we're heading here.
Yes, yes, I know. I mean, I'm from Europe, so like I know all about BricsCAD. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
let's keep taking them. I don't want to waste time. So Milikon is asking or saying here, this is especially amazing the way it loads fast. I can recall trying to do a presentation with the design on SketchUp. It took a whole time for some sections to load while zooming. Yeah. Um, so I guess also for presenting models in like meetings, this is probably the best app out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of tools out there right now that are like in the whiteboarding space or like that infinite canvas space where, you're saving views and you're annotating them and so on. And, we have some of that functionality where you can find an issue in the model and you can create a screenshot and you can tag people and you can kind of come in and have a conversation about maybe design or about the way in which something's working. And again, the value here is that it's the live models. So as soon as it's fixed, it's fixed. You're not wasting time spending an hour talking about something that's now no longer in the model. So yeah, it's a really powerful way to have a conversation using that model as a base. It's a really powerful way to zoom in from someone's apartment, looking out over your scheme. It's a really valuable tool to get down at street level and see exactly how your building is influencing its context. And the point is, you don't have to turn everything off to navigate it, right? You don't have to dumb stuff down and turn the models off just so you can move around your project. The point being is you should be having that holistic conversation about design, engineering, construction, and again, if you really wanted to, that full kind of one-to-one level of detail, if you really wanted to, right?
Can you add comments or issues or use it for this kind of issue management?
Yeah. So, just as I was explaining, it's currently part of the kind of clash detection workflow where you would take one model and you would clash it against another model. You'd apply tolerances and soft clashes, hard clashes, etc. You go through them. You can, save them. You can create an issue from them. So, if you had 10 pipes clashing with a slab, that's not 10 clashes. That's one issue, right? So you create one issue from that. I tag my colleague, I tag somebody else, what you need to create openings for these things, or let's have a conversation about what the solution is because I can't quite work out how to solve this. You create that issue, you save a screenshot, you comment on it, you tag on it. The issue obviously gets resolved because someone can literally just model an opening and extrude it and it's done. And then you solve the problem. And you're not having to go backwards and forwards between your design tool, uploading it to the CDE, downloading it into your clash detection tool, creating an issue, having a meeting, then going right the way back to the beginning in your design tool. Then you have to re-upload it. And it's not that 2-week exercise anymore. It's like, hey, we have a problem. Cool, it's solved.
Been there, done that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Awesome, man. So this modeling part was very, very interesting, but I do think that's kind of still. I mean, it seems a bit early, but so Matthew is also asking here: does it have these tools as extrusion, blend, revolve, sweep, swept blend, and void forms for like geometry, such as Revit does?
Yeah, so a lot of the kind of freeform modeling tools are there. So creating new geometries like boxes, cylinders. We use something called chalk curves, which is a way of like kind of drawing a line on a wall surface. You can then apply like tiling, below that chalk line that you've just drawn. We have the ability to extrude existing shapes and so on and so forth. We have filleting. We have aligning, subtracting, union, slice, stretch. We have tools around assemblies, so you can kind of create composites of items. We've got some of that kind of copy detailing stuff you've seen just a moment ago. So we have all the kind of, basic geometry modeling tools that you would expect. But, obviously, if you want a very detailed door like the one that's, in the background here, that's definitely a component. And so you'll see that coming through with our component library functionality. Which again will be available either I think just before the end of the year or very early in next year as well. So that's you have an organizational library of doors and windows and you just want to chuck them in. We want to make that as easy for you as possible. But yeah, all the kind of basic modeling, cuboid modeling kind of functionality you'd expect is already there.
Yeah, and it's also very nice to see that many of these like tools are in beta, which means that you're still like heavily developing this, which is awesome to see, and not like that everybody expects from some companies to develop something and then they don't do it for years. So yeah, like curved walls, we waited for years and years to come into Revit. So, anyways,
yeah, I mean, I'd probably just highlight, right? So we are moving at 1,000 miles an hour in terms of our development. And I definitely say if there's anybody watching this right now that is interested in anything I've just shown, or has ideas or comments about how this might develop out in the future, definitely get in touch, right? Let's build this together. We are building it right now. If you have a problem you're trying to solve, let's build the solution to your problem. I spent a lot of time going to these conferences in the US every year, sitting down with the product team, trying to explain them what the problem is, or going out into Shanghai with the developers and sitting with them for a week, showing them the problem, and then nothing happens. That is not the experience you're going to have with Qonic. When you get in touch with us, this is about sitting down, going through stuff, and then building it. And I'd like to say we're a lot more accessible. To many of your listeners in Europe, we're very, very accessible. I'm very happy to work with people to kind of build what people need. So.
What's the best way to reach out to you? Is it through your website or directly to you, your email, or?
This is it. We're not some super corporate American entity, right? If people want to get in touch via LinkedIn, if people want to send me an email, it's aaron.perry@qonic.com. If people want to go up on the website and use the community pages there to kind of comment on things, completely, whatever's easiest and most effective for you guys to kind of get in touch with us. Any.
Okay, amazing. Listen, let's be a bit quick with these questions here. So Matthew is saying, is the search bar Qonic's proprietary LLM, or you use some other LLM? Do you know?
We have been testing a couple of different options. So I can't tell you exactly what you just saw, what it is, but we do a lot of the kind of the in-between bit, basically. So a large language model just understands what the next word you're going to type in and so on. We do the bit where we're connecting that to the actual model data. So there is some proprietary aspect to it, but I don't exactly remember the kind of the solutions that we've been looking at and researching right now.
Yeah. Okay, more questions. Let's maybe cover a couple of them.
Okay.
Point cloud import. Can you edit a point cloud? Can you import from Google Earth? You can read it, I guess, yourself from the screen.
Yeah, so point clouds, we have one of my colleagues, the colleague that actually built the auto classification ML tool is right now working directly on point cloud integration with Qonic. So this is taking like trillions of dots and having it in the background whilst you're in Qonic. So not only when you're creating geometry, you can see the context of the point cloud, but also sometimes you might want to convert parts of that point cloud into a surface in which you then create geometry from. So that's in progress right now. And maybe Matthew, if you want to follow up with us to kind of say what you need, we can kind of base and sense check that with what we're currently doing. But it's in progress. It's coming soon. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just one question from here is like, can you share the file as view only version so clients can't change things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have very, very, very deep and robust user permission controls. So I might be the owner of the architecture model. You might be the owner of the structural model. I can't do anything to your file because we've not set those permissions between each other to be able to do that. Maybe I'm a viewer. Maybe I'm a data editor only. Maybe I'm a data editor and geometry editor. And maybe I'll just use this as an excuse to tease something. There are occasions where I might want to do something to your structural model. Say, for example, I want to look at builders' work holes or openings. Perhaps there's something I would like to encourage you to do in your structural engineering model. We're looking at bringing through a feature at the moment where I can edit your structural model. You'll see those proposed changes and you'll be able to assess them and review them, probably reject them, but maybe if there's a nice simple one, you can press approve. And that opening in the beam is now an opening in the beam. So if you've assessed it, you've worked out that is compliant, that would be strong, that would work. Rather than you now manually having to add the opening that I've already shown you where I want it, you could just accept my change. And so this is again something coming soon. So it really streamlines that collaboration process between different parties.
I love that. How many times does like any part of like either the architecture, engineering, construction, just want to show something quickly, but you can't really show it because like you either can't draw well or like the other person is not understanding you or like yeah. So this is I look forward to that feature, man. We have to have you back at some point.
Sure.
For sure. Yeah. This is a very interesting question from Fabian. Let's take this one. Does changing the geometry have some limitations when sending it back to the native software? Like formulas groups, it seems that we need to rethink how we model in the native software in the first place.
Yeah, so if you're exporting from Qonic, maybe you have a deliverable in your project of IFC. We have a really strong relationship with Building Smart and IFC data. So if you're exporting your geometry to IFC, you will not notice a geometric difference between what you see in Qonic and what you see in the IFC file. If maybe the question is specifically about like Revit, because there's some terms there like groups and things, it makes me think Revit. We just posted a video, I think maybe last week or something like that, about how the relationship between pushing changes back to the original Revit file works. And in those examples, we are moving doors, we're copying doors, we were editing walls and resizing the heights of walls and stuff like that. So we definitely know there's a lot of functionality that we can easily push back to Revit. I will say, though, we cannot test every unique way that something was originally modeled in Revit and how that goes through a Qonic workflow and back to Revit. So I wouldn't be surprised if one user out there will have a nuanced with the way they've built a certain family or something like that, where when we try and push back, it doesn't quite work. So I'm not going to say that we promise perfection in that area, but for something like changing thousands of parameters and moving doors and windows and stuff, that should be fine. Unfortunately, the parametric constraint engine within families in Revit is completely locked into the Autodesk ecosystem. So there is no other company outside of Autodesk that have access to that. So all of those formulas and parameters that you create in families, they are lost to every other piece of software on the market, unfortunately. So there is limitations outside our control there that we can't do anything with that, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair enough question or answer, actually. Yeah, listen, let's be very quick here. I want to make sure that we are at hour and a half exactly.
Okay. Yep.
Handling project client data, I guess it's as safe as AWS is if you're hosting everything there, or?
Yeah, so we detach the application. So the Qonic you see where you're pushing and pulling stuff, that's completely detached from the data side of things. So what I basically mean by that is when somebody is working in Qonic and they send me, they say, hey, Aaron, can you go and have a look at that project? Like, how would I do this? How would I do that? We actually can't see that data. That data is completely segregated. So you actually have to invite me to your project for me to be able to engage with it. So by separating the app and the data, it allows for a significantly more secure way of basically engaging in this kind of BIM 2.0 process. We use tier 1 hosting services that we've talked about, and those help us significantly because they deal with all the cybersecurity aspects and the data protection aspects. And so, yeah, we kind of piggyback on some of those storage solution systems to be able to host the information. And then obviously the app runs completely independent.
Yeah, I pulled up your screen with the QR code. This is just for people to learn more and get started, right?
Yeah, so I mean, as we round out the conversation, really, if like I say, this wasn't a great introduction to Qonic. I was obviously jumping into specific pieces. So if anybody
is the perfect
interested
introduction. Don't talk yourself down, man. It was awesome.
Well, there's 100 things I could have easily shown you about Qonic. So for anybody that's interested in learning a little bit more, obviously they can follow that QR code through or up on the website there to kind of learn a little bit more about Qonic. And likewise, again, if you have those kind of questions that maybe we didn't get a chance to answer here, we can kind of share some feedback and some answers to those as well.
Yeah, I'll ask you a couple of more because I have 4 more,
Sure.
but I'm gonna leave these out. Like, why should anyone work with you and not with your competitors? I think you explained that pretty well. Like, you cover many applications in one. It's very fair pricing. I don't see why anyone shouldn't try, at least Qonic and see how it fits in their workflow. Financial runway. I mean, I've heard about you 3 years ago. You have more than 40 people, working for it. So it's obviously like a bigger company with like good backing. That's what it seems to me. But the questions I can't answer myself is what does your roadmap look like, and what are you most proud of in your journey so far?
Yeah, so there is a lot of things. There is a really long list of things, specifically on the kind of the AI side of things that I was really pushing to be able to show today that are just not quite ready. And I think definitely if we have a conversation again in 6 or 12 months, it's going to be amazing what we can show you and what we can demonstrate. Because again, this idea that our foundations are set for the use of AI because we're not file type driven, right? So there's some really, really exciting stuff specifically on the AI and in the automation side of things. I think more broadly in terms of the product roadmap, we are laser focused on modeling. That's like the most important thing to our team right now, is building more modeling tools, more modeling functionality, really trying to get to where people need to be able to never use any other product if they don't want to, right? If you want to create a model from Qonic, create a model from scratch in Qonic, you can do that. You have every tool there that you need to do from start to finish. That's kind of where our roadmap is heading right now. We are every single week building in new tooling sets for modeling and developing of modeling. Of course, we still have customers right now that are asking for stuff. So some of the 4D planning stuff you see, stuff around the contractor side of things. Yeah, I have to. I'm sure my product manager is out there glaring at me, so I'm going to try not make eye contact to say too much. But keep in touch with Qonic. We post quite regularly about some of the things we're doing. You'll see some posts marked as Qonic Labs. These are the things that we're basically teasing, and we're hoping that people kind of comment on them in LinkedIn and kind of give us some feedback about where they'd like to see it go. So.
Okay, awesome. And what are you most proud of in your journey so far, both personally and company related?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've probably hinted to this already. I did become quite deflated working with software vendors to just move forward and to change. And when certain tools have quite a significant market share, their number one objective is to return shareholder value. So if you have such a market share, you don't need to do anything else with it, right? I have thoroughly enjoyed moving across to a startup that runs at 100 miles an hour, that is building stuff for our users. And I vividly remember the conversation I had with an architecture practice here in London, where they gave me a list of things and I went to their office like 2 weeks later and said, yeah, we've done it. It's in, it's there. Enjoy.
Pay me the money.
Yeah.
It's done.
Well, that's just personal. I mean, there's not really a commercial angle. That is just personal satisfaction. That is just like, finally, we are in, ideologically, we are moving our industry forward. Like, we get a lot of criticism in AEC that we're like way behind the curve of like digitalization and digital adoption. And I'm just really enjoying being able to like propel things forward as part of Qonic. So.
Man, this is amazing, and please excuse my bad jokes. I think anybody in the audience who's watching a couple of these, they know that I come as a package. I guess I'm pretty good at hosting this. I do my best, but it's also like part of the bad jokes that are here. Please don't let me take away. This has been an amazing demo. I think you've done a better job than you even imagined, because I think that I'm not the only one who was like falling off my chair and like grabbing my face. Oh my God, how quick, how fast. How amazing is this? Like we also saw, I also saw this in the comments as well. One more thing, do you have anything else left to say? Maybe like last few words you want to mention for now?
I don't necessarily have anything planned. I guess it's a probably a repeat of what I've just said. Like, if you are interested in this being the future of the tools you use within your organization, get in touch with us sooner than later, right? Don't wait for this to be ticking 10 out of 10 boxes for what you need it to do right now. Like, start engaging with us, start talking to us when maybe it ticks 5 or 6 or 7 or 10, wherever you are on that spectrum of what you're trying to get out of it. Come and talk to us, come and work with us, help us build this with you. Because we are really committed to making sure that this industry catches up and is able to really use a lot of the automational tools that are available, right? So yeah, please keep in touch with us. Please follow us along and get using Qonic today. It's free to use, right? So
yeah, man, thank you so much. Listen, I'm gonna put you off the screen for a second now. I still have like something to share.
No
but
problem.
regarding you, we started when it was daylight. Now it's nighttime in London already. Thank you so much for showing all of this. We have to have you back for sure. So this has been amazing, and we all have people, saying this as well. So thank you everybody in the audience for the questions. Anyways, Aaron, please check, stay in the background for a second now.
Yep.
For everybody else still on the call, guys, has this been amazing? I'm impressed with what Aaron has shown us today. This is so incredible. I just wanted a couple of things. So next week we have Endra. Let me just maybe pull that up as well on this screen. So Endra is for anybody working with MEP. Let me remove and pull this up. Yeah, anybody working with MEP? We have them next week, October 30th. So it's going to be a Thursday instead. I'm traveling to Toronto in the beginning of the week. And we have a bunch of more of these AI demos planned. So if you think this is something worth your time, I really hope you do. Please, sign up for this one, and maybe even sign up for the newsletter to get notified of those. You can get it just by free AC Hub, and that's it. And of course, finally, as might know, in 2 days, I'm increasing the price of our Discovering ANAC course. It comes with lifetime licenses, and there's going to be like an AI app masterclass, some still filming new stuff this week and uploading new stuff, and this week and next week, and so on and so forth. So if you want to get a strong fundamental base of AI and like more than you actually expect, you can get it today for the cheaper price than it's gonna be on Friday, for sure. So, anyways, this was everything from my end. Actually, I don't have anything more planned for today. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you for the amazing questions and the amazing engagement. And yeah, we're gonna have a bunch more of these to come this year. So I hope you're gonna join those too. Anyway, God bless you all, and yeah, all the best. See you. Bye bye.